Jason told me the results were just for fun. He smiled that same crooked smile he always used when he was bluffing at poker or trying to keep from laughing in church. It was supposed to be a joke, a casual mail-in DNA test, nothing more than a trending TikTok challenge between identical twins who never spent more than a day apart. But now, I'm standing in his apartment, watching the screen glow blue in the dark, hearing the echo of my own breath as the results blink once, then disappear. The email is gone, deleted. Not archived, not moved, just vanished. I try to find the trace in the browser history. Nothing. And Jason? Jason hasn't spoken in 12 hours. He's sitting in the corner with a towel wrapped around his hand, trembling, whispering the same word over and over again like a broken machine. Call her. Call her, call her. But he won't tell me who she is and the other twin, Justin, he's missing. I'm not telling you this as a friend. I'm telling you because I watched something I shouldn't have. Something that's not going to let me sleep again. And the worst part? I think it knows I saw it. I think it's waiting for me to open that email again. But I can't. Because the black doctor who sent it is missing too. Dr. Rochelle Gaines called 911 before she could even finish reading the second page of the DNA report. She didn't hesitate. Didn't try to call the twins, didn't email back, she ran. Left the building without her purse, her phone, or even locking her lab. Her office cameras captured her sprinting into the street barefoot at 11:47 p.m. She told the 911 operator 3 words before the call cut out. They're not twins. The dispatcher asked her to repeat it, but all that came through next was static. Not regular static either. It sounded wet. Like someone breathing into the line underwater. Then a sharp whisper, not Rochelle's voice, barely audible, but clear enough to send a chill right down your ribs. Said a name I haven't heard since my grandmother's funeral, a name I've never spoken out loud. My name. Only she ever called me that. And here's the thing. My grandmother died in 1997. She was buried with a closed casket, Savannah. But just now, I played the 911 audio on my phone in front of Jason. He started shaking uncontrollably. He said he remembers that voice. He heard it once before, on the night their father disappeared. A night no one ever talked about. A night sealed inside a family photo album no one opens. Until now. Look, I'm not saying the twins aren't human. But whatever that test found, it doesn't belong in a database. It doesn't belong in this world. There's a line that shouldn't be crossed, buried deep beneath bloodlines and surnames, and they just tripped over it laughing. The last footage of Justin, the one who vanished, shows him leaning against the wall of their shared apartment staring at something off-screen. He lifts his hand slowly like he's reaching for someone or something. Then he turns his head and whispers a phrase no one else heard, not even Jason. The room goes dark. The camera glitches once, just a single frame, and when it comes back, Justin's gone. No sound, no exit, not even a shadow. And here's what broke me. Right before the glitch, if you pause the footage at exactly frame 437, you'll see a reflection in the mirror across from him. It's not him. It's not Jason. It's not Rochelle. It's a child. And she's smiling, holding the same DNA envelope in her hand. The same one I just picked up from Jason's floor. I haven't opened it yet. I don't know if I should. But something tells me you've seen that envelope too, haven't you? Maybe not physically. Maybe not here, but in a dream. Or in a voice from a screen you thought was turned off. All I know is that once you see your name written on it, you can't pretend it didn't find you. Because just now, as I'm recording this, a new email appeared. No subject, no sender. Just one line. Check the baby monitor. And I don't have a baby. The baby monitor sat on the kitchen counter, its tiny red light blinking like a heartbeat in the quiet. I stared at it, fingers trembling, wondering if I was about to unravel everything, or just lose what little grip on reality I had left. When I pressed play, there was nothing at first, just static, a dull hum that crawled under my skin. Then a voice cut through, so faint I thought maybe my mind was playing tricks. It wasn't a baby's coo or cry, but a whisper. A name, mine, spoken low, barely there, like it was carved out of the silence itself. I rewound and played again. It was the same, but I swear this time the voice had a crack, a broken edge that twisted my gut. I wasn't sure if I was hearing things, or if something was reaching through the cracks of my mind. I'd caught myself before, replaying conversations, twisting memories until they bled into nightmares. Was this real, or just the last breath of a fraying mind? That's the thing about unsolved mysteries. They don't just hide in shadows. They slip inside you, settling in your bones until you can't tell what's real anymore. The truth behind what no one tells you is often drowned out by the noise you make trying to stay sane. That's when Claire showed up. I hadn't called her. She wasn't in my life anymore, not since everything began to unravel. But there she was, leaning in the doorway like she'd been waiting, eyes flickering with something I couldn't name. Concern, guilt, or something darker. She spoke in half-phrases, a fragmented language of memories I couldn't piece together, talking about lost time, erased files, and something we never dared to discuss. Our childhood. The childhood I barely remembered. She said things that didn't line up with what I knew, contradicting the fragments in my head. "You're forgetting," she said softly, almost pleading. "They don't want you to remember." Was she trying to help or gaslight me? The question hovered like a thick fog, swallowing the room whole. Her voice, sometimes soothing, sometimes sharp, echoed inside me as if trying to rewrite the script of my mind. The more she spoke, the more I questioned everything. The twins, the doctor, the whispering voices. What if the DNA test was a catalyst, a trick our minds played on us to cover something we were too afraid to face? Or worse, what if it was a trap set by forces we'd never understand, designed to shatter our grip on reality? The deeper I sank, the more memories slipped through my fingers. Faces blurred, names erased, conversations I couldn't place. Hidden recordings surfaced on my phone, messages I never sent, videos I didn't remember filming. Some showed me alone, talking to someone off camera. Others had glitches, fragments of distorted images and sounds that made no sense but felt familiar, like echoes from a past I was trying to bury. Each revelation was a punch to the gut, a reminder that maybe the unsolved mystery wasn't just out there, it was inside me. Claire's presence grew more unsettling with every passing minute. Sometimes she'd laugh in a way that didn't reach her eyes, sometimes she'd disappear for hours without a word. When I pressed her for answers, she'd stare past me, as if listening to a conversation only she could hear, and mutter, "They're watching. Always watching." I wanted to believe her, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Was she a guardian or a ghost? A friend or a fragment of my unraveling mind? I sat back, the baby monitor's red light now pulsing like a warning. Somewhere in the silence, a soft knock echoed through the apartment. Just once, but enough to freeze the blood in my veins. I stood up slowly, heart pounding in that relentless rhythm of fear and fascination. The line between what's real and what's a symptom had blurred, leaving me stranded in a place where the only certainty was that I was no longer certain of anything. And then the whisper came again. Not from the monitor, not from Claire, but from inside my own head. "Remember," it said, "before they take it all away. What they don't want you to remember is still out there, waiting in the darkness." And now, so am I. The moment I held the torn photograph in my hands, I felt a flicker of something like hope. The edges were brittle, the ink faded, but the image was unmistakable. Two children, almost impossibly alike, standing in front of a weathered farmhouse beneath a sky heavy with clouds that looked like they might swallow the sun whole. It was the same place Jason and Justin had always spoken of in hushed tones. A place they said no one should ever visit. The kind of childhood secret that sits just beyond reach, buried beneath years of family smiles and forced silences. As I traced the blurred faces, memories began to surface like fragments of a long-forgotten dream. A night of flickering candlelight, whispered warnings from a voice I couldn't fully place, a lullaby that twisted into a scream. I thought maybe this was it. The hidden truth finally uncovered. Maybe everything that had felt so unhinged was just a shadow of something real, something I could grasp and hold on to before it slipped away again. The photo led me to an address, on the outskirts of town, a house that time seemed to have swallowed whole, its windows staring blank and empty like hollow eyes. Inside, dust coated everything in a thin layer of neglect, and the air was thick with the scent of forgotten things. Old wood, dry earth, and something else. Something metallic and sharp that pricked at my skin. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, and in the corner, half buried beneath a pile of faded blankets, was an old tape recorder. It clicked to life when I pressed play, and a voice, soft, tremulous but unmistakably familiar, spoke through the crackle. It was my mother's voice, or someone who sounded like her, telling a story I'd never heard before. A story about a night when 2 children vanished without a trace, only to reappear years later, different and silent, as if carrying secrets no one was meant to know. For a moment, the mystery seemed to settle into place like a puzzle finally completed. The twins, the DNA test, the vanished doctor, it was all tied to that night, to that house, to a secret kept in silence for decades. I could almost breathe again, thinking the pieces fit together, that I was finally seeing the whole picture. But then the tape distorted. The voice warped, the words twisting into something else, something monstrous. And just when I thought the tape was about to end, a sound that didn't belong. A low, guttural growl, followed by a breath so close, so cold, it felt like it was whispering directly into my ear. That's when the walls seemed to pulse, the shadows stretching and recoiling like living things. I remembered then the story my grandmother used to tell in half-forgotten murmurs about a presence that watched from the edges of childhood, waiting for the right moment to slip inside. It wasn't a story, not really. It was a warning buried beneath layers of family myth and memory glitch, something we'd all agreed to forget because to remember would mean losing our minds. It was the same feeling I had now, the creeping sensation that I was being observed, that every step I took was traced by unseen eyes, that every whispered name was a chain pulling me deeper into something I couldn't escape. The false resolution shattered completely when I noticed a detail on the back of the photograph, an inscription, barely legible, scrawled in a shaky hand, "Not who you think they are." The words stabbed through the thin veil of clarity I'd grasped, pulling me back into the haze of doubt and fear. Suddenly, the faces in the photo didn't look like the twins at all. They were younger, yes, but their eyes were wrong, hollow in a way that felt more like absence than innocence. The past mirrored the present in a way that was disturbingly intimate, a twisted reflection of the same nightmare repeating itself, unnoticed but relentless. I left the house with the tape recorder in my bag, the photograph clenched tight. But the weight in my chest wasn't relief anymore. It was dread. The danger I'd sensed from the beginning wasn't a person or a place or even a secret. It was something far worse, an unseen force woven into the fabric of my own memories, watching and waiting, patient and merciless. It was the flicker in the corner of my eye, the silence when the phone cuts out, the name that shouldn't be spoken, but haunts every shadow. The more I tried to understand, the more I realized that the story I thought I was living was only a fraction of what was true. And now, looking back, every strange glitch, every whisper, every vanished moment makes sense. But also demands a second look, a second chance to catch what slipped past the first time. Because this isn't just a story of twins or DNA or missing doctors. This is a story of memory itself, the things we refuse to remember, and the truth they don't want you to uncover. You're not crazy. They lied to you. And if you thought you knew what was happening before, it's time to watch again because nothing is what it seemed. Not the faces, not the voices, not even the silence between the words. There's a rhythm to this, something almost too deliberate to be coincidence, that's been humming beneath the surface of everything I thought I knew, as if the unraveling of my own story was only a thread, part of a web being spun far beyond my sight. The strange thing is, I'm not alone in feeling this shift. Others exist out there, like me, shadows tracing the edges of forgotten memories and fractured realities. I've started to see signs. Cryptic messages slipped into public forums, flickers of shared symbols in dreams that dissolve upon waking, and fleeting visual cues in places I know too well, as if someone or something is sending us secret signals in a language only we're meant to understand. The kind of communication that feels less like a message and more like a tether, pulling us all closer to a truth so vast it threatens to swallow us whole. It began as small anomalies, a phrase repeated in unrelated conversations, a symbol etched in graffiti that appeared on walls across states, and files named with numbers and dates that didn't add up, but hinted at something buried. Online, I found a hidden community, people who, like me, were piecing together fragments of a puzzle no one wanted solved. They talked about found footage from 20 years ago, recordings long erased from archives but resurfacing in strange, encrypted corners of the internet. Videos that showed faces I recognized from faded photographs, voices whispering secrets they were too afraid to say out loud. The government never released this information, but here it was, leaking through the cracks of censorship and silence. Our collective memory glitch was not just a personal curse, it was a shared wound. The dreams, though, were the darkest thread. More than one of us described slipping into the same unsettling visions, a blurred landscape where time folded in on itself, where faces merged and twisted until identity became meaningless, and where a presence watched from the shadows with an intelligence that chilled the soul. This force, always just out of reach, seemed to know us better than we knew ourselves. It fed on fear, but also on something deeper. Our doubt, our fragmented sense of self, the cracks where memory failed. In these dreams, a silent observer emerged, a figure without a face but with eyes that seemed to pierce straight through the veil of reality. Some call this observer a witness, others, a jailer. But all agree that it was the only one who truly saw the tangled threads for what they were. And then came the messages, coded, disguised, slipping through social media posts, hidden inside music lyrics, embedded in glitches on live streams. Phrases like, "You were right all along," or, "Remember what they tried to erase." Each message was a fragment, an invitation to trust what our minds instinctively resisted, to believe that our fractured memories were not failings, but warnings, that the sense of being watched, of manipulated, of losing control was not paranoia, but truth. The idea that identity is not fixed, that memory can be rewritten or stolen, and that the very concept of self might be an illusion constructed by forces beyond comprehension. These messages didn't just unsettle, they demanded a reckoning, a choice between surrendering to confusion or fighting to reclaim what was ours. From this mounting tide of shared experience, a new perspective emerged, an observer who claims to stand outside the chaos, someone who offers clarity without comfort. This person's voice is raw, unfiltered, and terrifyingly human, unafraid to name the dangerous forces at play, though never fully revealing them. They speak of a system designed to monitor and shape us, not just physically but psychologically, crafting a reality where memory and identity are battlegrounds. They reveal that the twin story, the vanished doctor, the whispered names are all symptoms of a larger experiment, a control mechanism that's been active longer than anyone dared admit. They warn that what we see as reality is a carefully maintained illusion, and that breaking free might mean losing the very self we cling to. As I listen to this third voice, I'm struck by how close it feels, like the breath of someone standing just behind me, yet impossible to grasp. The dread thickens, but so does a fierce, raw energy, the kind that rises when you realize the nightmare isn't just yours, but shared, and the fight is far from over. There is no neat resolution here, only the expanding spiral of questions and half-truths, a living puzzle that drags us deeper the more we resist. So where does that leave us? The watchers and the watched, the dreamers and the doubters, caught in a labyrinth with no clear exit. The story we thought we knew was only the surface, a facade hiding something vast, relentless, and profoundly personal. The truth we crave is locked behind layers of silence and deception, and the more we uncover, the more the ground shifts beneath our feet. What we face is not just a mystery, but a challenge to everything we understand about who we are, what we remember, and how much control we really have. And now, as this unfolds before you, because you've been here all along, whether you realized it or not, you are no longer just a witness. You are part of the pattern, the secret conversation that's been happening in the shadows. The question is whether you'll see the next clue when it appears, or let it slip by like all the others, lost in the noise of a reality that's never quite what it seems. The lines between observer and participant blur, and the next move belongs to you. The night was heavy with silence, but inside me, a storm was raging. One that wasn't just about the strange disappearances, the cryptic messages, or the blurred lines of memory. It was about something far older, far more fragile. What it means to be human when the very ground beneath your identity shifts like sand slipping through desperate fingers. I sat alone in that dimly lit room, the glow from my laptop casting shadows that flickered like ghosts as the weight of all I'd uncovered pressed down on my chest. The truth wasn't waiting somewhere outside me. It was tangled in the fragile threads of my own existence, woven through memories I didn't trust, emotions I barely understood, and fears I'd tried to bury. I realized then that the mystery had stopped being about what or how. It had become about why. Why had these fractures appeared? Why had my past been edited like a script I never auditioned for? And most painfully, why had I been left alone to piece it all together, to carry the unbearable burden of doubt? There was a raw, aching humanity in that question. The loneliness of feeling like a ghost in your own life. The terror of realizing that maybe the stories we tell ourselves about who we are just as fragile as the illusions crafted around us. And then the confession came, one I wasn't ready for but could no longer avoid. It was whispered in the quiet moments when all the noise faded. I had been complicit in ways I still didn't fully understand. The fractures in my memory, the lost time, the strange erasures, they weren't just things done to me. Somewhere deep inside I had wanted to forget, to protect myself from a truth too painful to bear, even as it shaped everything I feared and longed for. Vulnerability spilled over like a cracked dam. I was scared that the truth would shatter what little I had left, but terrified, too, that without it I was already lost. That was the moment when everything shifted. The edge of destruction and salvation blurred into one terrifying choice. To face the truth was to risk losing everything I thought I was. To deny it was to live forever in a half-remembered nightmare. It was a fork in the dark, a question with no clear answer, but one that demanded courage I wasn't sure I had. And somehow, in that moment, I understood something essential. Being human is not about perfect memories or unbreakable identities. It's about the struggle, the endless wrestling with shadows and doubts, with pain and hope, and the courage to keep reaching for meaning even when the answers might break you. The screen flickered. The voices, the dreams, the symbols. They weren't just fragments of a broken story. They were echoes of our shared fragility, reminders that we are all unfinished, tangled in mysteries that have no easy endings. I felt the weight of that terrible beauty, the haunting freedom of waking up from a dream you didn't even know you were in, only to find the world is stranger, darker, and more alive than you ever imagined. And so here we stand, at the edge of the unknown, with no promises of peace or resolution, only the quiet pulse of truth, stubborn and relentless, calling us deeper into the dark. Because some stories don't end. They change you. They open doors you never knew existed. And sometimes the most terrifying awakening is simply knowing you can never go back to sleep. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time, remember, some truths don't want to be found.